If you guys have ever wanted to have a story-driven experience of a Silent Hill game, then Shattered Memories is going to have you all covered. So, this game was made by Climax and was published by Konami. But during this time, after the Silent Hill 4 stuff, which being the last game to be made by Team Silent and ended up disbanding, Konami wanted to shift focus on having Western developers make the game series instead. So they ended up doing a couple of games and quite different experiences afterwards. There was Silent Hill Origins that was made from Climax, which did okay in terms of reception. Mostly on the PSP version. The PS2 version I've always heard was fine for what it is, but the criticisms being towards was the visuals, which I don't see an issue with. But maybe I'll cover that another time. But there was another game that was made by Double Helix, known as Homecoming, which was given mixed reception, at best. So, Climax will once again make a game, and this time it will be Shattered Memories. Shattered Memories is basically a reimagining of the original Silent Hill game. It was stated that one of the guys behind this game wasn't a fan of Silent Hill 3, and so he thought the series could use a redemption with this game. And so, here it is, Shattered Memories. It was originally a Wii exclusive, but a month later, it ended up coming out on the PSP and the PS2. But it was originally announced on the Nintendo Power magazine of the issue of May 2009, which I remember having this. It's my first Nintendo Power magazine. Although I don't recall ever reading it, I do, like in terms of the game, I do recall seeing the cover. So I am quite familiar with the magazine cover itself. That was the first glimpse I got with the game. It's just I never played it or even really heard much about Silent Hill during that point. I have seen the game's covers, but I never really seen anything about them more than just the covers. So for Shattered Memories, there's no combat in the game whatsoever, which you might not be happy about, but at the same time, it's not bad. And this game pretty much showcases that not every game needs combat, and this one is pretty much executed perfectly here. Now the thing is that the Silent Hill games have always been expensive, for whatever reason being. But that's the thing, I've always remember picking the game up, but I was really only at a local game store just to get Silent Hill 2, but one of the localists decided to ask me if I wanted to play Shattered Memories as well. So I took both Silent Hill 2 and Shattered Memories both on PS2. And this was at the time when Silent Hill games were cheap and now overly expensive for no reason being. And yet it's funny that people call the gaming companies greedy, but yet the consumer base are always guilty of the same thing, which is pretty ironic if you think about it. Just look at the eBay prices. I'm not kidding you when I say this. But anyways, Shattered Memories has you go around and solving some puzzles, like finding a key to open doors, or perhaps trying to find some other puzzles to try to get certain items you need. But you also have your phone, which comes in handy. Now, if you guys are wondering about the cursor in the game, well, let me remind you, this was made to be a Wii game, and it really showcases that. Now, it may not graphically look impressive on the PS2 version, but it still holds up against the Wii version. There are some similarities here and there, and a lot of people do like the control scheme that was made for the Wii version. The PS2 one is fine for what it is, while the PSP had some other downgrades. Surely the graphics and the control scheme is somewhat changed compared to its PS2 counterparts. Now, as far as I know, in European territories, it is the only version to be digitally available of the PlayStation Store. So if you guys happen to live in Europe, make sure you check to see if you guys know for a fact it's still on the PlayStation Store in terms of the PSP version. Because as far as I know, there's no PS2 version available digitally. And yeah, this is like the only way you'll probably have to get your hands on the game, if you're gonna do that. Now, people have recently stated that Silent Hill F is meant to be a game that is designed for replay value, in terms of different playthroughs, but I don't know why people just make it out to be that way. It is true, but what I am saying is that the Silent Hill series has always been known to be a game series that has you play through multiple playthroughs because each game has multiple different endings, including Silent Hill 2, for example. Just like all the other games in the series, depending on the games you probably be playing, this one's no different, as the game has a couple of different endings and a lot of different paths you guys can take across. One of the examples is that when you're given a question of these checkmark things, your gameplay can alter. What do I mean by this, you're wondering? Well, you'll be meeting some ladies that act nice, mean, and flirty. Yeah, that's basically the only way I can say it. But this game also has mementos. Mementos are more like these little collectible things where you can find in each game playthrough. What do they do? Well, you think they may not serve a purpose, but if you guys beat the game, you'll probably see what I mean by the end of it. Also, you can view your mementos that you have that you can look at if you really want to. They're in a little box thing. Now, for the phone, you can basically use it to call places and we'll use it to solve some puzzles. And also to take pictures of these shadow things. I haven't really came across a lot of it, but when you do that, you can actually get some voice messages. With the messages too, you can listen to the past conversations of other people or something like that. But that's not all of the voice messages does. That and the calling. You need to listen to these voice messages in order to solve some certain puzzles. And that's how exactly that you're going to need to do it. Because if you don't listen to them, then, well, go look at that. You'll just be lost. But surprisingly with the puzzles, most of them are pretty easy to solve, unlike the rest of the games that I've played. Yeah, I'm not kidding, this is one of the easiest puzzle solving games that they've actually have. At times it's hard, but most of them are too easy to figure out. You don't have to move to certain places to be at. As a matter of fact, you could just stay in one room, look around, and then that's it. But then you got these ice things. What I mean is that you're in these little zones where you're getting chased by monsters that do have a nice resemblance of one of the enemies with a knife in Silent Hill 1. I mean, that is a whole plot line. Sure, it is, again, like I said, a reimagining of the first game, but the plot is a lot different than you think. Because you'll be talking to your therapist, but when you go back to switching to play as Harry, looking for his daughter. That's basically the plot line of both this game and Silent Hill 1 does. You know, speaking of Silent Hill 1, in case you guys don't know, the game's getting a remake. Not saying this game's getting a remake by all means, but you get what I mean. Silent Hill 1 remake, it'll still be there soon. But anyways, when you go to the ice places, you're being chased by monsters and you have to figure out how to get out there. Sometimes you may have to solve a puzzle, but at other times, you're going to have to try to find the exit, which sometimes can sound easy, but it's not. It can tend to be a haze maze, but you can still use your phone to navigate where you need to go. It doesn't really show you where you need to go, but if you're in like a safe area, then yeah, you can technically do that. So it's like there's multiple playthroughs that you guys can serve in this game, and sometimes there's rare oddities that you may not know exist. I ended up finding out there was a certain NPC that or just character that I never knew existed until I did my research in the game. It's not to say I never played the game, but I never actually came across this character. But the problem is some people have no idea how to get to that character. So that just makes it more of a way to replay the game, is so you can know what you're gonna find in these games. Sometimes it's like games like the SmackDown vs. Raw series where there's always a rarity that you may never know that you'll come across. That's just a comparison to most of the replay value games, and this one seems to really showcase it. So, despite the game getting pretty good reviews on the Wii version, the game just wasn't selling that great. I mean, to be fair, it's the Wii. Not many M-rated games actually sold well on there, so it kind of makes sense. So to make sure the game sold well, they ended up bringing it over to both the PSP and the PS2 in 2010. But if you guys are also scared of the monsters for some reason, you can always just hide in lockers. Although, you shouldn't stay for too long because they can sniff you out. So that's my big advice, is to be careful and don't go over crazy. But don't worry, I know I said there's no combat or anything, but you can use flares. Flares are these little things where you can make sure the monsters stay quite away from you guys. So that's exactly what you can use. It's rare, so you're gonna have to make sure you use it. There's only one in like per area of the ice things. And yeah, that's exactly what you'd be doing. So it's like that. It's like a common pattern. Therapist, you're wandering around, then the ice thing, and then you're back to normal, and then, you know, repeat. But each playthrough can just tell its own difference in story. Like the way your character talks, or the other players talk, or the, you know, people, but still. There's a lot of, like, reasons why you should definitely play this game. But I am hoping this game does get some sort of, like, emulated re-release or something like that, like, in terms of the PS2 version coming to the PlayStation Store or something, for anyone that wants to play it. I mean, it is one of the newer titles. It's not new, but it's still new. But what you're also seeing here is the house thing. What does this have to do with mean? Well, let me tell you what it has something to do with this topic. When you draw the house, not that like draw, but colorized, if you colorize whatever color you want, that color scheme, including the clothing of the character, can actually be used in the game itself. So that is some nice details they can also look into when it comes to Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Doesn't matter what platform, but again, this game was technically made for the Wii, and it still tries to showcase that functionality. Only the cursor is a little slower on the PS2 and PSP version, but it makes sense. It doesn't want to be sensitive or anything, because if it was too sensitive, it would be bad. No, there's no progressive scan of asking, which is not a good sign. But again, it is cheaper. What I mean by cheaper was that the PS2, PSP, and Wii were all cheaper to be made instead of the PS3 and Xbox 360 because of development costs. So that's why the team decided to bring it to the Wii. The thing is that Silent Hill has been on Nintendo platform before, but only on the Game Boy Advance outside of America. So this marks the first time worldwide where Nintendo will have a Silent Hill game that Nintendo fans can actually be treated for the first time. So there's so much details in this game that I could go over, but if you guys ever want to save the game, you can navigate using your phone. I have heard stuff about if you listen to voice messages or just anything like that in general, the Wii remote speaker can be used as a plot thing. You know, most games happen to use the speaker on the Wii controller or remote just to hear some of those voice messages. One of those examples is No More Heroes, and they did that, which I have experienced. The only thing is I can't really speak about this game because, again, I've only played the PS2 version. If I could play on the PC of the Wii version, I could. The only difference is really is that you're relying on the Wii remote and a nunchuck and a higher resolution of textures. But yeah, it is still pretty close to its counterpart, but the PS2 version does a good job holding itself up against the Wii version, like I said before. But yeah, there's always going to be one of those cases where you go back and you may find something in the series that you may never knew that existed. Again, I just went to a game store and they wanted this game for the PSP for 100 and maybe 130 or 150. I think I saw one point on the PS2 or the Wii for like 400. And that's the price that you're going to be paying for online. And that goes back to my point from earlier. Yeah, I say if you guys want this, either if you guys live in European territories, you might as well get the PSP version. But again, I don't think it's the best way to play it. I say the PS2 version is the second best way to play it. And if you guys are lucky enough to get the Wii version, then it's a definitive way to play it. Only because, again, it's specifically designed to showcase the whole functionality. I have read the Wii version, never really has any load times. The PS2 version has pretty good load times. It really doesn't really take that long either, which is pretty good. I can't speak on the PSP version though, sadly. Although I've always heard the PSP version of each game has longer load times than anything else, which is kind of bizarre. Unless if some games had some sort of installation, like Monster Hunter had one for example. But if you guys want to look for a different type of way to play Silent Hill or want to experience a Silent Hill game differently, then this is the game to look into.